This is J. Krishnamurti's first public discussion in New Delhi, 1962.
This gathering is supposed to be meant for a discussion. I wonder if it would be possible to discuss with such large group. Perhaps it may be better if you ask me questions and I try to answer them. I think it's always rather difficult to ask questions. Because if we know what we want to ask, we already know the answer. And it's rather difficult to put questions because most of us have definite opinions about the questions. We really do not put a question to inquire. And I think if we could this evening, perhaps put questions with the intention to find out, then I think then it might be worthwhile. But even then, to inquire, to go into things very deeply, step by step, very simply and directly, needs a certain clarity, needs certain attention. And perhaps this evening, if you will, put questions with the intention to find out rather than to merely reduce it to a question and answer meeting. So perhaps you'll be good enough to ask questions. If not, we can discuss. Yes, sir.
I want to know who is responsible for this chaos government.
The gentleman wants to know who is responsible for this chaos and suffering in the world. I think that's fairly simple, isn't it? Each one of us. We would like to attribute it to some evil powers, or to injustice, or to some idea. But I think if one looks at it fairly closely and intelligently, one finds, doesn't one, that each one is contributing to this chaos. After all individual relationship is society. How we live with each other, the occupation, the way of our thought, why we have divided ourselves into nationalities, into religious groups, into the south and the north, into the various corrupting political attitudes. All these surely are the contributory causes for the confusion, conflict and misery in this world. And also, don't you think it comes into being through our own ambition, through our own envy. And instead of cleansing, investigating into one's own mind and heart, we rather attribute the chaos to somebody else, to a pattern of society, communist, capitalist, or other kind. And will the clarity of individual investigation into himself, will that clarity bring about a change in the world? That is, will individual action be of any value to this chaotic misery? How do you think deep revolutions are brought about? By individuals, surely. But by each one of us being totally responsible for his own action, totally aware of his own thoughts, and perhaps then one can bring about a revolution in the world. I wonder if the reply to that gentleman is of any value. He put that question, and what is he going to do about it? Which is much more significant than putting the question. Is each one willing, not theoretically in abstraction, actually change his whole outlook on life, cease to be a Hindu, a Buddhist, a Christian, not belonging to any group, not being an Indian? Surely, such an individual has an extraordinary potency. He has dynamic energy. But you say, unfortunately, we don't want to do things. We want somebody else to bring about a revolution.
When I sit down for prayer, when I used to look into my mind and what you call the reality within me, my mind wanders. It goes to what? The more I bring it and concentrate it to the Lord, I find I cannot do so. It's always running after what? I got as it were entangled with what? I wish to do my work as a kind of a dedication to the Lord. I cannot do the Lord. I think only a work. How to put that?
As each question has to be repeated by me, because these questions are not heard by the rest of the audience, would the questioner please hereafter make it as brief as possible? Otherwise, my repeating may be incorrect. So would you mind putting the question briefly and to the point? The gentleman asks, please do not send in written questions. Ask them. It's much more direct. The gentleman asks, how is one to concentrate on the truth, which is the Lord, when one is so occupied with work? The work, the action takes the whole of the mind. And when you want to concentrate on the truth, your mind wanders off. How is one to concentrate? That's the question, isn't it, sir? And the gentleman also added that I said that truth is within one. I'm afraid I have not said that. One has to find it. It may be under a stove. It may be under a dead leaf. It may be in the passing cloud. It may be in the face of a child. And if you deliberately set about to establish within yourself and then concentrate, surely such process is an intellection, an idea. So you see, sirs, first of all, the problem is this, is it not? The mind conceives that there is a reality, the Lord, something that which is permanent, the higher self or what you will, and then you try to concentrate on it. So there is a conflict between what you think is the real and the work you are doing. Now, why should there be a contradiction? And what do we mean by concentration? Can we take those 3 points? That is, what do we mean by concentration? Why does the mind establish an idea? It is really an idea which it calls the Lord, the truth. And try to concentrate on that idea. And therefore, there is distraction and the conflict which arises when you wish to concentrate on something when the mind wanders off. Shall we stick to those 3 points? Is that all right, sir? First of all, what do you mean by concentration? To concentrate, to focus your mind on something. Whether you're doing your office work, or the boy studying in his class, or the person who wants to meditate, put his mind on what he calls the Lord. I am not belittling or using disrespectful terms. Now what takes place when you concentrate? Please follow this little bit. What takes place when you concentrate? You try to force your mind, do you not, to focus its attention on something. You try to force it. Now, why does one force it? Because the mind wanders off. You think you should concentrate on that image, on that idea, and the mind wanders off. And you try to bring it back to that point. So there is a battle going on between the urge to concentrate and the mind wandering off. Right, sirs? Now, why should the mind wander? Obviously, it wanders because it's interested in the things to which it is going to. I want to concentrate on that picture. My mind goes off and thinks about my shoes, or what I'm going to do the next morning, or what I'm going to tell my wife or my boss, or how I'm going to do my work. Now, which is important to the mind? The work, what I'm going to tell my boss, what I'm going to say to my wife, and about my shoes. That's much more important to the mind than to concentrate on the image. It wants to concentrate on the image, but it wanders off. So why not examine the things to which it wanders? You follow, sirs? Why not look into the things in which it is interested, instead of forcing it to concentrate? Because when you investigate into the things it is interested, then you will find the true significance of each interest. And therefore eliminate this conflict between the desire to concentrate on one thing and force the mind to concentrate on it, and at the same time the mind wandering off. Why should you want to be interested or focus your mind on one thing which you call God, truth, whatever you will? Why? Is it because you want peace? Is it because you want comfort? Is it because you think by identifying yourself with that thing there will be more harmony, more peace in your heart? Or do you have peace only when you understand the conflict, the process of all, conscious as well as unconscious? Surely, if one understands the whole process of thinking, of action, of feeling, then out of that understanding comes attention, which is far more significant than a concentration. So you see, the difficulty is most of us are used to concentration, to concentrate. That is to narrow down thought onto one particular point. Like a schoolboy who has been taught to not look out of the window, but look at this book. And you force him. You tell him he must concentrate in order to pass his examination. He will concentrate. He will narrow down his mind. He will learn the page. He will learn that page by heart, but nothing else. He won't have the intelligence to look and watch and see. You have destroyed the pliability, the sensitivity, the delicacy of the mind. So if you observe, concentration narrows down the mind. But if you become aware, if you become attentive to everything that is taking place, to your thoughts, to the movement about you, attentive when you get into the bus, when you go to the office, when you talk to your wife, to your husband, to your children, then out of that attention comes a mind in which there is no distraction and therefore no conflict. And then such a mind can proceed to inquire further. but to establish an idea as truth, as God, as the Lord, and then try to focus your attention on it. And the mind wanders off. Indicates surely, does it not? The interest is not in the Lord, in the idea, but in the things it is wandering to. So why not examine all those ideas, all those interests, so as to break down the narrow mind, the petty little mind, and from there you can act. I hope I have made explained the question.
I would like to know as to what is the self and why does it exist?
Just
I would like to know as to what is the self and why does it exist?
why does it exist?
And what is the mind?
Not too many questions, because the gentleman wants to know what is the self. I only said don't put what is the mind, what is this and what is that. One question at a time is good enough. What is the self? What do you think it is? Surely, the self is the bundle of memories. The self is the past. You may not agree, but please examine what is being said. You may think the self is an extraordinary divine entity. But if you think the self is extraordinary divine entity, if you think about it, that very thought is the result of the past. You have been told about it. So it is still within the field of thought. So, the self is the memory, is memory. The things that you have learned, your experiences, the incidents, the accidents, the past in conjunction with the present, which makes the future. The self which suffers. The self that says it's my house, my family, it's my country, my God. The self is the thing that believes and does not believe. The self is that which says, I am the higher self. All that surely is the self, is the bundle of memory. Please, sirs, I know you're all brought up to believe that the self has a higher self and the higher and higher self. An extraordinarily complicated thing. But the obvious fact of everyday existence is that the self is a bundle of memory in which the center of memory is the ego, the me. The me that it says, this is my house, this is my thought, this is my belief. Surely, sir, that's how you live day by day, don't you? It's your wife, your husband, your property, your religion, your country, your conflict, your sorrow. All that is the self. Why introduce a higher self? I know why we introduce it. Because we think by introducing a higher self we shall solve the problem. The higher self will control the little self. And when you say there is a higher self, the higher self which is beyond time, which is a spiritual entity, please follow this. So you may not agree, but listen to it. When you say the self is the spiritual entity, what does it imply? It implies surely that the self is out of time, beyond time, something which is not in time. Isn't it? The spiritual state, the thing that you call the supreme self, is out of time, must be. But if you think about it, it's already within time. To think about something, you must already know about it. I can think about my wife, my father, mother, because I know them. In the same way, if I can think about the higher self, I know it. How do I know it? Because I've been told. The book, the guru, the tradition tells me there is the higher self. And yet, the moment I think about it, I have brought it into time. And therefore it is not out of time. So why not begin very simply, factually, objectively, scientifically, why not begin with the fact that we are a bundle of memory? We are the product of environmental influence. And to see if the mind can go beyond it. That is the question. Not to say we are the environmental result and full stop and nothing more. That would be too absurd. But to admit, to know, to be aware that we are the result of your environment. Aren't you all? You are Hindus. Why? Because you have been brought up in a particular society which calls itself the Hindu, with all the traditional beliefs, customs, ideas, hopes, fears, superstitions, and all the rest of it. And me, I may be born in Russia, I'll be brought up in a communist society which doesn't believe in anything of this kind, which only believes in state worship. What's the difference between you and me? We both are slaves to environment. 10,000 years of propaganda has made you into a Hindu. And 2,000 years or 40 years has made me a Christian or a communist. So why not start with that, with the fact, and not with an idea, not with a tradition, with a hope. And then from that fact, I can proceed. The mind can investigate. The mind then can find out if it is at all possible to break down its conditioning, to cease completely to be a Hindu, or a Christian, or a Buddhist, or what you will, or a communist. It's only the mind that revolts, that breaks away from society, becomes the individual mind, not accepting society and saying, yes, there is God or there is no God. So, to investigate into the self, which is the me, which is the memory, is the process of self-knowing, self-knowledge, to know the machinery of one's thought, to know, to be aware of the motives, conscious as well as unconscious. So we are not just the superficial, conscious, everyday working mind. We are also the unconscious, the hidden. In the hidden are all the racial, family, environmental residue as memory, unconscious, hidden. The totality of that is the self, the me, which is not individualized yet at all. It is collective still. Because all of you are Hindus or Christians or Buddhists or what you will. And to be aware of this totality of your condition, to be so conscious of it, to see this fact, and very perception, the very seeing of that fact releases, makes the mind free, and therefore you then begin to be a real individual, not a collective social entity. I know this goes against all your tradition. But Sir Chalet, the past is dead, as every past in life. The world is changing rapidly. Either we change superficially, or we bring about a deep inward revolution. That is, to break away from society totally. Not as a reaction, because that leads nowhere, but to be aware of this conditioning. And to break away from it. I don't want to go into the more complex issue involved in it, which is, I'll put it very briefly and you can see it for yourself or not. How is one to look at one's condition? Do you understand my question? I am conditioned as a Christian, or a Buddhist, or a Hindu, Muslim. Now, how am I to be aware of this total condition? Do I investigate each conditioning step by step, which would be a very complex process and perhaps leading nowhere? Or is there a way of looking, seeing so totally that you see this whole conditioning, and the very perception and the very act of seeing breaks the condition? Have I made the question clear? So, look. I am the past. The past being the race, the family, the experiences, the atom bomb, educated abroad, educated here, this and that. I am all that, all that conditioning. The innumerable influences that have shaped forth. Am I to investigate each thought, each conditioning, each influence? And that will take innumerable years. And through that investigation, if I do not investigate properly and understand each investigation, I will further complicate another investigation, because I have not completely understood the first investigation. So I see the complexity of investigation. So how am I to break down this conditioning completely, immediately? Is it to be done step by step, which is impossible, and therefore it must be done immediately, with one perception, with one seeing? You understand the question, sirs? Have I explained the question sufficiently? Yes? Right. Wait, I haven't finished, sir. You see, sir, you're so full of your own questions, so eager to put your own question that you don't even listen to to what is being said. I am answering that question which this gentleman put, which is, what is the self? If you are not interested in it, just wait till I've finished. And then we can continue with your question. You see, sir, the problem is this. Because you have to understand the problem first, very clearly, before you can answer it. The problem is this. There are many, many layers of conditioning. Every day adds to that conditioning. Every influence strengthens it or weakens it. Every thought, every feeling, the things you read in your newspaper, the quarrels, everything adds to that conditioning. And how is one to throw it off completely and instantly? It must be done. It can't be done over a series of years, because then you're adding and not taking away. So how is it possible to brush it away immediately? That is, how to look at your conditioning totally. How to look totally. Not at the conditioning, but how to look, how to have this capacity of seeing totally. I don't know if you're right. Then if I have the capacity to see totally, one conditioning will understand, looking at one condition totally will break down all conditioning. What, sir? The gentleman wants to know how. Good God. You see, you are not listening, sirs. You are interested in how to do it. You want a method. And I've explained a method is another introduction of a new problem. You have innumerable problems as it is in your life. Don't add another. But please do listen to what I am saying. I am not giving you a new problem. On the contrary, I am saying don't have thought. Then the mind is fresh, young, innocent, clean, new. But if you say, how am I to do it? You have introduced a problem, a method. And then you have how to fulfill that method when you want to do something else. And all the contradiction arises. So please do listen. This is I am conditioned as a Hindu. You know what a Hindu means? I don't have to go into. If you're not Hindu, you might be a Christian or a Catholic or a communist. Substitute your own condition. I'm a Hindu, Muslim. I'm a Muslim. And for 1,000 years more, it has been established. A series of ideas have been established. Influences, customs, traditions. My mind from childhood has been shaped in it. And I call myself a Muslim. Now, I see to be really intelligent, to be really awake, to find out what is truth, if there is truth, I must cease to be a Muslim. Completely. Now, is it to be done gradually, bit by bit, or is it to be broken away immediately, instantly? If I break away little by little, see the thing involved, if I break away little by little, I am not only taking away but adding all the time. Life won't let me. Therefore, I am translating every influence from my previous conditioning. Therefore, by gradual process, I can never be free. Because being a Muslim, I already react when I meet a Hindu or a Christian, however much I may not want to. So, it must be broken down immediately. Now, it is only possible when I understand what it means to see. To see totally. To see something totally. That is the question. To see totally my conditioning, not bit by bit. Please follow this. To see totally something. Now what does that mean, to see totally? We never see anything totally. You never see the cloud totally. Because you look and you are thinking of something else. You look at a flower and say how beautiful it is and go on, because your mind isn't there. You listen to your wife while thinking about your office. You're occupied with your daily occupations and you never give attention. So you really never give attention to anything. Observe it, don't accept what I'm saying. Watch yourself, you never give attention to anything. Attention being a mind not in contradiction, not in conflict, not having opinions and ideas, judgment, giving attention. If I want to listen to you, what you are saying, I must give my attention. I mustn't think what my neighbor is saying. I mustn't have opinions. I must listen. So, total attention is necessary. Don't say how. There is no how, but listen. You will have it if you listen, and the listening is the miracle. Then if you listen, you will pay attention completely to everything. What prevents total attention is opinion. Opinion being your conclusions, your ideas, based in your conditioning. What prevents total attention is your evaluation. Saying this is right, this is wrong, this is what I think, this is what should be, and all the rest of that. Total attention is prevented when you are comparing. As you are listening, I'm sure some of you are comparing. Saying, what does the Gita say? What did you say before? What does Shankara say? What does your pet guru say? This, that. You follow? Compare, compare, compare. And therefore, you're not paying attention. So there is attention only when there is no comparison, no condemnation, no judgment, no opinion, but giving your whole attention with your body, with your senses, with your whole mind. And that attention will break down through the understanding of one conditioning, the total conditioning.
How far is there the necessity of the master teaching, the master, the holy book, etc., etc.?
What is the value of the master and the holy books? Is that right, sir?
What is the necessity?
The same thing, sir. What is the necessity of the holy? Why do we need holy books in the masters? Why do you need them?
How far is the necessity of the
Do we need masters and holy books? That's the question. Now wait a minute, sir. You see, I have never read any of these books, Gita, the Upanishads, or any philosophy. I haven't read a single religious book, probably just as well. And I don't need them. No master, no guru, no book. Because you find the light in yourself, not in somebody else. By following somebody, you are destroying that light. By accepting authority, doesn't matter whose authority, including mine. Whether it is the authority of the Buddha, the Upanishads, the Guru, the Gita, the Bible, any authority of any priest prevents the understanding of that light. And by following another, your mind becomes dull, stupid, insensitive. The idea that you will train by reading the sacred book is equally invalid. There is, if you are observing everything that you are doing all day, the way you talk, the way you walk, the way you strut about when you are in power, you watch people in power, watch every day, you learn everything of life. And watch yourself. Read your own mind and your own heart. And that's the greatest book. In that reading you will find everything about life. You don't have to turn to the printed word. There is no need for sacred books. There are no sacred books. They are just books. Because 10,000 people call them sacred, it does not make them sacred. They're just books like any other book. And a mind that wants to find out, go into it very deeply, into life, and to discover the extraordinary beauty and the immensity that is beyond the mind, cannot have a single authority. The gentleman asks, what is, in your view, the purpose of life? Now, sirs, you're not asking my view because I have no view. I have only facts. and they are much more significant than views and attitudes and opinions. Now, please, all of us ask this question. What is the purpose of life? Do listen to this. What is the purpose of life? Who puts this question? The man who has not found purpose in living. Say, don't laugh. This is a serious question. Look at it, sir, please. We have no meaning in living, and we want to impose on that living a meaning. We want to give a significance to living. And therefore we say, what is the purpose of life? That means we are not living. You want a purpose, an idea, a thing which says that is the purpose, and I will agree or disagree and live according to that purpose. Which means what? That there is no interest in life, in living, in being, in understanding sorrow, misery, the way you treat your wife, your husband, with the society, the rottenness of this world. And you want a purpose. There is no purpose. If you live one day totally, completely, and see the richness of that single day, and that in itself is sufficient. Because you see, in one day contains the whole universe, all of life. Because in one day there is sorrow, there is beauty, there is fear, there is death, there is meditation. And to understand all that, to live it, to understand what love is, what death is, what time is, to live it, to go into it. And when you do that, you'll have found out that there is no purpose but living. Living completely, without contradiction, without pain, without sorrow. A man who is in conflict, who is in sorrow, how can he find the purpose? The purpose is to understand his sorrow. Gentlemen ask, why were animals created? I think you better ask the zoologist, sir. I'm not it.
You are talking?
Just a minute. Yes, sir. Make it short, sir, if you don't mind. Make your question so short. What is my special field? Huh? What is my skill? What is my skill which I have acquired? What is my special capacity, intellectual, physical, etc., which I have acquired during these years, so that when I have answered that, gentleman will put the question. I will tell you, sir, I have no special quality at all.
All ambition bad. It was suggested that we should drop ambition.
The gentleman asked, should one drop all ambition? Sir, why do you ask me? Don't you know your own ambition, what it does to you? Don't you know how you are ruthless? How ambition corrupts you? Ambition being success. You want to be success. You want to have power. Don't you know what power does? Living in this country, living in this capital, don't you know what it does? How it corrupts? Doesn't matter the highest and the lowest. It is evil. Don't you know what it does when you have power, which is another form of ambition? So why ask me? And can really a religious mind, not the mind that goes to temples, I don't mean that, a really religious mind, do you think it has ambition? A man who really has broken away from society, do you think he has ambition? Ambition being not only to achieve reality, to achieve a position in heaven, but also to achieve a position in this world, to have power. So why isn't it fairly clear and simple when you observe your own mind and your own heart, when you observed all the world about you, what ambition and power do? How can an ambitious mind know love? How can a man in position of authority, power, how can he have peace in his heart? No, sir, you must leave power, position, envy, all those are put aside. Only when the mind is very clear, and it can only be clear in humility, not in ambition, that there is a possibility that it can go beyond itself. Oh. All right, sir, all right, sir, all right, sir. Yes, yes, sir, quite. I understand, sir, I understand. Right, sir, please sit down, I have understood. Yes, sir. The gentleman asked, what do I think about this constellation, these stars that are meeting day after tomorrow? I'm not an astrologer, nor can I predict what is going to happen tomorrow at 3:30, isn't it? Sir, just...
My question is also something like that. Once that feeling may be more powerful than the power of the mind, and the mind has been repelled so much by the past that I find it very difficult to fight against destiny. You are talking about revolution in mind, but destiny's influence may be stronger.
I have been talking about, sir, I've used different words, which is conditioning.
How a crippled mind...
Wait, yes, sir, I understand. I've explained very carefully, sir. You see, we stick to one word, destiny. And if you introduce another word like conditioning, you're lost. Conditioning, destiny, will are all the same thing. The mind is shaped, and it is necessary to break through. I have explained that, sir. I'm not going to go over it again. Gentleman asked, do I believe in this what is this? Planets meeting together, getting together around a table. I'm afraid I don't know anything about it. And I hope there is not going to be more misery to man through this meeting of these constellations. More earthquakes, more misery. There is enough trouble in the world. Enough misery in the world. Not only created by each one of us, but also by the politicians. Sir, I understand, sir. Yes, sir. You see, sir, you are not listening. I have very carefully explained, please listen, sir. I have very carefully explained that a mind that follows, seeks guidance, it destroys itself. You have to watch yourself. You have to watch what you think, what you do. And instead of being concerned with what is happening inside and outside, you want political leaders and gurus. And woe to the man who follows.
You just said, sir, that there is no need of books and gurus. Then I am astonished to see.
My own books being published.
Please. Moreover, I am astonished to see why have all these men come to you and you are teaching them as a guru.
I understand that. The gentleman is astonished that I sit here and talk as a guru, and that the books are being published. First of all, sir, I am not talking as a guru. I am not your authority. And I refuse to be a leader or a guru, because I see the fallacy of the destructive nature of following somebody. That's very clear. There is no doubt about what I am saying on that matter. So you cannot be astonished. You may then ask, why are you talking? Why are you talking in this town to so many people? Very simply, sir. You know, when you love somebody, you want to tell them something, don't you? When you love your son, your wife, your husband, really love them, not try to shape them, not try to control them, not try to force them. You tell them, look, there is a lovely tree, come and look. Don't you? So perhaps it's the same reason. Then, why are these books published? For the same reason. You can burn them. But if you rely on them, you are lost. Because then you will make them into ideas, opinions, concepts, ideations. And you will observe, if you read those books, they don't give you ideas, formulas, theories. They are dealing with facts. But you can make out of those facts into a theory. Then those books are not worth it. Then don't spend a penny. The gentleman asks, is seeing sufficient? Mustn't one also act? If you listen very carefully, I said, seeing is acting. The two are not separate. Most of us deal with ideas and try to act according to those ideas. Look, sir, now this country, unfortunately, is building up nationalism. Nationalism is an idea for which you are going to kill and be killed. It's an invitation. Nationalism is an invitation to war. Mature mind throws away nationalism. It's an idea. And then according to that idea, you're going to act. But what I am talking about is entirely different. Seeing is acting. If I see, in that very seeing, I am acting. So when you see a cobra on the road, in the garden, your seeing is your acting, isn't it? Huh? It's as simple as that. When you see a bottle marked poison, you're acting. You leave it alone. But you can't see if you are blinded by an idea. And you are blinded by the idea of nationalism. Blinded by the idea of the religion to which you belong. Therefore you don't see. And therefore you put the question, is seeing acting? Is seeing different from acting? So, is loving different from acting? When you love somebody, you act, don't you? Or perhaps you don't know what love is. Sir, please sit down, sir.
You have just now declared that you love these people and you want to tell them what you think to the book. Same is the Guru who loves the public and he tells the
Right,
people.
sir. The gentleman says the Guru loves the public and wants them to tell them. Surely, sir, we're talking of two different things, aren't we? You stick to your Guru, sir. Because that's what anyhow you're going to do. You stick to your books, that's anyhow what you're going to do. Because they give you a sporadic, vain comfort which has no meaning. On the contrary, what I'm talking about is very disturbing to you. I'm telling you, on the contrary, to break away from everything to find out. Break away, not as a sannyasi breaks away. He breaks away in cloth. He takes a new cloth. And that's not breaking away. Putting on a saffron robe or becoming a monk is not breaking away from society. Clothes don't make you indicate that you're broken away from society. What indicates is you are seeing the whole structure, the anatomy of society, not as a reaction, but seeing it factually, how corrupt it is. Society worships success, power. And a religious man has no worship of success, power. He's away from it.
How do you justify the existence of so many religions all the time?
How do I justify so many religions in this world? I don't justify it, sir. I see it. I see the fact, please, sir, I see the fact that man wants to be conditioned by the religion in which he is born. So what is there, sir? You are a Hindu, you are a Sikh, you are a Buddhist, you are this and that. How does it happen? You are born to a family that believes in all this and that conditions you. Don't you think we better stop? Yes, sir. I don't. I did not refer to the greater self. Sorry, sir. Oh, I am sorry, I did not say, sir. What I said was simply and very clearly that the fact is one thing and the idea is another. The fact is we are the past. In that past is included the idea of the greater self. In the past, the idea of the greater self is included. Because you as a Hindu or a Buddhist believe in the greater self. Not the Buddhists perhaps, the Hindus. And that is an idea carried over from the past. What, sir? The gentleman wants to know if there is anything sick. Yes, sir. The dead leaf, the little boy, poverty, the corrupting influence that is destroying this world. Those are evil things. There are sacred things. To be kind, not because it is profitable, not to have vanity, to see a tree and see the beauty of it, to see a smiling face. Sacredness is not in the temple, not in a graven image, not in the books. It's in your heart. Only you have to search it out. You have to go through yourself to find it.
In ancient days, the time of Rama and Rajita, kings were having gurus.
Sir.
Kings were having gurus. And in this time
Sir, please, sir. I've answered that question already. Sir, this must be the last question. No, sir, that gentleman asked the last question. The gentleman asks, do I believe in God? Is there any significance in the word God, Lord, or any other? It all depends whether you are a believer or a non-believer. If you are a believer, you have significance in that word. If you are not a believer, you throw that word out. But in there much more. If you want to find out, You must be free of the word, mustn't you? If you want to find out what is God, not what people have said about God, that has no value at all. If you really want to investigate, to discover for yourself if there is such an extraordinary thing which man has been hunting for centuries upon centuries, hunting. Some saying there is, some saying there is not. If you want to find out, if you want to experience, if you want to know that extraordinary thing, if there is not, you must be free of the word and its significance, mustn't you? And only the mind that is free of the word and the discovery how the mind is slave to words and freeing itself from its conditioning. It's only such a mind can find out. That's it.